Welcome to Lawson Woods PNW. I'm Lawrence, the host. This week, we bring the top 10 considerations to buy a tiny house. What do you need to look for? First one is, what size of a tiny house do you need? Do you need a micro tiny house or a more larger model? In my case, I started out with a small tiny house and eventually upgraded to a large 28 by 8 two-story tiny house, as you see here. One thing I always think of is if I could have done it over again, instead of a small tiny house or a large tiny house like I have now, I would have gone with a bedroom downstairs. You know, it can be difficult when you're upstairs with two dogs. So my advice to you would be if you plan on living in your tiny house long term, you might want to consider where your bedroom is located. Thankfully, my stairs aren't too bad, so I'll be okay for now. But these are some considerations that you want to think about. Do you want to climb a ladder to get up to your loft every day? Or in my case, thankfully, I at least have the stairs. Number 3, off-grid or on-grid? Do you plan on being in an RV park or a similar setting? If so, most require flushing toilets and do not allow for gray water or open drainage. That's something to consider. Now, if you decide to find a place that you can park it yourself somewhere, that's a whole nother story. In my case, I bought an empty plot of land, doesn't have a well, didn't have electricity, didn't have septic. I had to figure all that out myself. That was not an easy feat by any means. I currently have almost 1,800 gallons of water that I get delivered. I also use a rain catchment system. This is not legal in all areas. Fortunately, where I live, it is allowed. Check with your own municipality to decide if it's right for you. So I'm now currently connected to the grid, thankfully, as far as electricity is concerned, and I also have a septic system that was installed last year. So, I don't know, am I off-grid or on-grid? That's the question. Fun fact, the average family uses 300 gallons of water per day. There are things you can do to minimize that, like a low-flow shower head. I only use 20 per day. Number 4, self-build or hire the job out. Do you have considerations of experience? Are you willing to learn? Mistakes can be costly. And building your own can save a lot in labor. But what if you make mistakes? What if you're not qualified? Then don't be afraid to hire a contractor. Vest to those contractors. Look at reviews. Check out their Better Business Bureau reviews as well. And make sure they're reputable and they have insurance and are licensed. And number 5 is insurance. This can be a tough one. Many insurance companies will not cover tiny houses unless they're certified as an RV. However, there are some that will. In my case, AmFam, American Family Insurance Company, does allow it here in my area, but they did have to do a site visit. So these are things to consider. Now, number 6, where can I park a tiny? Well, is it going to be in a permanent place? Or is it going to be, for instance, in an RV park or private land or your own land? Both of my tiny houses, my micro tiny house and my large tiny house, were difficult to find parking initially. I called over 100 different places before I found parking in my first tiny house. It can be daunting. Number 7, skirt or no skirting? Well, finally, after 2 years of this tiny house, I put the skirt around. It's already reducing my power bills. I'm feeling the wind decrease below the tiny house. The floors are not as cold anymore in the wintertime. So yes, it's up to you, but if it were me, I'd skirt. Keep in mind, you may want to consider skirting that has insulation built into it. Just another fun thing that you can do to save some power. Almighty power and the almighty dollar. Number 8, storage, the arch nemesis of all tiny homes. Where are you going to put all your stuff? Well, in this case, I utilized my stairs for my library, my TV, as well as my fireplace. But you also got to consider your clothes, your kitchen, your cupboards, and don't be afraid to downsize. Most of you know, if you haven't already realized this, tiny houses don't generally have a lot of storage. So Consider downsizing or giving it away or donating. When I buy something new, something old has to go. That's my motto. Number 9, finance or build as you go. Both have great options to them. Be like the wise owl and consider your options. It can be difficult to get financing through a typical lender. You could do a personal loan that could cost a little bit more with interest, or sometimes some private owners will be willing to consider financing for them. I did that myself with my second tiny house. I bought a half-completed shell off of tinyhouselistings.com. Not a sponsor. But anyways, it's out there. The possibilities are endless. You just need to ask. Don't be afraid to ask, whether that's asking your bank or finding a private investor that way. And number 10, investment or loss. Well, previously, when tiny houses were first coming on the market, a lot of them weren't holding value. But as housing costs have climbed and skyrocketed over the years, and if the tiny house is built properly and up to code, then yes, they can be an investment. If you park it on your property that you own, for instance, that's another way to consider it as an investment. You will pay a little bit more in taxes, but your value of your property and your land will also increase. Many tiny houses are holding value and gaining value. So the answer is yes, it can be an investment. But do your research. I hope this video has been helpful. Thanks for joining. And don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe at Lawson Woods, PNW. Ciao for now.